As I thought about it over the years, I refined it to the fact that we could do it in every square block, every residential square block in America. Open up a bedroom to a homeless vet. I wanted to move homeless vets. I wanted to set up low-cost structures on what I believe Richard Kelly Hoskins told us, that the foundation of every civilization was the self-sufficient family farm. Now, I lived on a ranch out in the middle of New Mexico for many years, and I had 5 acres there. And I figured, well, if I put 10 teepees that provided homes for American Indians for thousands of years, why not use it? With the technology we got with the solar, we could put a solar unit, a solar generator on each teepee and make it totally self-sufficient. Here's the lights, here's a computer, here's the communications. I could do the show with on a solar generator just like I'm doing it right now. And if I said, let's bring the homeless veterans in, 5 of them, 6 of them could share a teepee, and they could weed the gardens. We could grow our own food, non-genetically modified, stuff that's actually good for you. So we could feed ourselves, and all they'd have to do is milk the goats, herd the cattle, milk the cows, mend the fences, and earn their keep. And if we did that across America, if we did it in every neighborhood, you got a spare bedroom, take in a homeless vet, put him to work. Put him to work. Build your solar panels, put solar on your roof, put a garden in your backyard instead of that damn crabgrass. Oh, if you're in the high rent district, I guess you got Bermuda grass. Put in food. Grow your own food. And I proposed that, came out with that, and the next thing I know, somebody tried to kill me. I was kept drugged in a hospital for 3 months. So the True Face FEMA went down, Free American went down, and the Liberty Village concept. I don't know which one it was that they didn't like. Maybe it was all 3. But
well, you're absolutely right. I don't like any of it simply because it works.
It does. It does. And, I've got a little hope. Before this, well, I've got a controversial opinion. I think this is the 21st century, and burning bushes are just a little passé. So I think God uses the internet. I get. I will.
Well, I think right. God is up to date. He's technically far advanced than we are, but he's also we're still having earthquakes, and he's going to continue to do that to try to get our attention. We've had over 100 in the last month or 2 here in California, but at any rate, he's trying to get our attention, and I'm hoping he will. I hope people are listening.
Well, that came up across my desk. The fact that these earthquakes are increasing, especially around Yosemite, around Old Faithful, the caldera there is heating up. It's the earthquake's waking up, and that could be the fire that closes down half of America.
Yep.
And, it's almost hard to defend us, Wiley. How many unborn children have we killed in this country? If you total it up, the unborn children and the old people that we've drugged to death in the rest homes and the nursing homes that are younger than I am, younger than you are, how many they may have toked up a total of more Americans murdered than they did in the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union, after the Bolshevik Revolution, that Stalin killed 60 million white Christian Russians. 11 million right into Ukraine, where they're trying to do it again. I mean, how can we not expect God to be a little bit ticked off about this, about our behavior?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the concept with my Liberty Villages. I mean, I want old folks there to do exactly what my grandfather did. My grandfather set me on his lap when I was 4 years old and read to me. So when I went into school in the first grade, I could read at a sixth grade level. I could read 1,000 words a minute. I read every book in the Fort Worth Public Library in the science fiction section before I was 14. And I owe that to my grandfather. School didn't teach me nothing. And they put me in school in classes, and I taught my classmates to read in the first and second and third grades. You know, to me, that's the whole Liberty Village concept. You know, you have the old people there to take care of the young, to teach the young, to teach them how to garden, to teach them how to grow their own food, to teach them how to take care of this land that God gave us.
Well, that's exactly what we've got to do. We've got to get back to those basics. Got to get back to what made this country great, and that is a belief in God and a serving God and a working mentality and a producing mentality, and we've got to get back to that.
Well, that is the whole concept behind the Liberty Villages. I don't want to rule nothing. You know, this is a problem with our politics, with our whole political system. Last 2 years, I guess, we donated. American people donated over $1 billion to the Republicans and Democrats. Where'd that money go, Wiley? Oh, it went to the media companies. The media companies, none of which are doing anything other than, you know, I'm sure you remember Charles Collins running for president back in '96.
Yeah.
I traveled with Charles from Maine to California. And every time Charles got up to tell people we could buy back the Federal Reserve, we could do what Kennedy did with Executive Order 11110. They turned his microphones off and pointed the cameras at the ground so nobody in America ever knew Charles Collins was even running for president. And we donated $1 billion to these two parties. And I call them two wings of the same bird, and the bird's a global vulture. It ain't an eagle. We don't know. The only people that you see are the Mitt Romneys and the Barack Obamas and the Bob Doles that in a fair election wouldn't stand a snowball's chance in hell. But because the media only tells you who you can vote for, who they endorse, who they want you to know about, we got no choice. The game's rigged. And only what Harry Riley is talking about doing is going into Washington, D.C. and taking them out. Taking them out. Arrest them and try them. I mean, I'm not for killing nobody. But I'm not exactly for our whole prison system. I don't know why we need to keep somebody in prison, pay them room and board for some plant they got in their pocket or for some substance they got in their pocket. I think that's insanity. That's the whole police state right there rolled up in one. Our criminal justice system. We're putting we got the politicians that are bringing the drugs in, and they're arresting the people they sell it to and putting them in prison so they can work for IBM for 25 cents an hour. I call that slavery, don't you? And the people that are actually bringing the drugs in, the George Bushes, the Bill Clintons, they don't go to jail. They're not tried. They're not held responsible here. How about these banks that are funding all the drug money, laundering the drug money? Are they not guilty of something?
Well, of course they are.
You know, this probably makes me pretty controversial, but I say tear down that wall, replace it between us and Mexico, replace it with tables, abolish all the laws against victimless crimes. If there's not a victim, there's no crime. If there's no, either one is it habeas corpus. I mean, it's if you can't just make something illegal. They tried to do that with alcohol. They've done it with drugs. They've done it with hemp. My God, hemp was our #1 cash crop for 200 years in this country, and they stole it from us. Made it illegal for you to have it or grow it. Well, you might smoke it. Well, how about the 10,000 products we could make out of it? We could reindustrialize this country with hemp alone. We could. It was on the back of our $10 bills back in 1914. Bundles of hemp were on our $10 bills. It's a commodity. I mean, suddenly you make cotton illegal, and if you got a cotton shirt on, you're going to go to jail. That's what they've done to the American people. And I'm sorry, I've been smoking pot for 45 years, and guess what? I was kind of excited, Wiley, when they passed medical marijuana in California and Arizona. I thought, wow, I might not be a criminal anymore, but turns out I'm too damn healthy to get medical marijuana to qualify for it. And I said, well, the reason I'm so healthy is I've been smoking it for 45 years. So the medical marijuana is a step in the right direction, but it ain't the answer. I mean, they're still using the tax laws and the drug laws as reasons to put innocent people in jail. Ayn Rand had it right. She told us 50 years ago, the government has no control over honest citizens, so they got to make criminals out of us. And that's exactly what they've done. That's what they did with alcohol. Suddenly, that Model T that Henry Ford built, that Model A that Henry Ford built, he built it so it would run on alcohol. But if you made alcohol for it, whoa, you were a bootlegger then. This has been going on for 100 years. They've been criminalizing Americans, turning us into criminals. And I don't think nothing could be further from the truth. In 45 years.
You're absolutely right, and that's why we must get back control of the law of the land. We must get back into where we can do something about an illegal alien in the White House and an outlaw that's supposed to be in charge of the law, Eric Holder, and Pelosi, and Bonner, and Biden. We need to get those guys out of there and reestablish legitimate law in this country. We see here, for example, recently, the government took a young girl away from her family. The family wasn't dopers or drinkers or irresponsible. The little girl got sick and they took her to the doctor, and the doctor said she had a particular problem, and they wanted to get a second opinion. They got a second opinion. The government stepped in and said it's all in her mind, and they took the girl away from them, and that was almost 2 years ago, and she is now in a wheelchair. She can't even walk now because they won't feed her right, they won't take care of her, and the only thing that family did was take that little girl to the hospital. It wasn't like she was being neglected or abused, and yet the Boston Gulag has her in jail. She's in jail. She's actually being locked up and dying in the Gulag there in Boston. And high-priced lawyers and everybody are doing everything they can. A lot of dedicated men and women in law are doing everything, filing habeas corpus and everything else, but nothing is working because the government says, no, that's our child, not your child, it's our child. And they won't even let that little girl go home.
Wiley, I just went through all that. I had a lady on my show. Her name was Donna Taylor. And she had a son, Mark Taylor, who was the first child shot at Columbine. He was featured in a movie, Bowling at Columbine. And they came through to see me. I had her on my show. And when she left, she went from Tucson to Phoenix, and she dropped him off, took him into an emergency room because something was wrong with him. He had some kind of allergy or some kind of seizure or something. And they kept him for a year, drugging him. It took me a year to get a lawyer to get him out. We got him out. I got to meet him at a McDonald's there and say hello to him. And she took him off to Colorado, and they did the same thing to him in Colorado because he was speaking out against the pharmaceutical company. He was speaking out against the drugging of the shooters at Columbine. He wrote a book about it. Nothing wrong with him, and then suddenly he was drugged out. Suddenly he can't communicate. Suddenly he's back into the whole medical system. To me, these doctors in this medical system is the biggest criminal organization out there. The pharmaceutical companies, big pharma. And, you know, my family was a victim of that. My mother and grandmother, I mean, they raised me, did a pretty good job of it. But looking back, I realized they were drug addicts. My grandmother had her sleeping pills. My mother had her pain pills. And so they were drugged all the time. I thought my grandmother was just feeble until I took one of her little red Secanols. Woo! Granny, you've been, no wonder you've been stumbling around.
Yeah.
And our whole medical system, this Obamacare especially, this is all dedicated to make to allow you can claim a benefit and you can get your prescriptions paid for by the U.S. government. So they're keeping Americans drugged. This is part of what's wrong. We were talking about what's wrong with Americans. Why would they do this? They're drugged into oblivion. They're drugged. They're drugged so much they can't think. And we're paying for it. Our Medicare is paying for it. All these people, they've been, and even the veterans, especially the veterans, they're doing this to the veterans. Oh, he's got post-traumatic stress syndrome. What does that mean? That they've got a conscience?
Yeah.
You got post-traumatic stress, so you got to take this Luvox. You got to take this Valium. You got to take this. They tried that on me for 3 months in the hospital. They fed me Halcyon, Haldol, Valium, morphine. You know, it's, I'm lucky I didn't kill somebody. They blamed it on a head injury. Bullshit. It was the drugs I was on. Oh, you were one mean sucker, boy. You pulled pictures off walls and beat us over the head with it. Yeah, that should have been a clue to you. You had me on the wrong medication.
Yeah, right.
And that's what they're doing to our veterans, isn't it?
Well, we've got a lot of our veterans involved, and we're hoping to get more and more of them involved in Operation American Spring, and I want to encourage everybody to go to that website, OperationAmericanSpring.org, or go to PatriotsForAmerica.Ning.com, and if they do that, they can find out what's going on, when we're going to be there, where people are going from. We're taking a train on the 12th day of May. We're taking a train from Union Station, Los Angeles, all the way across the country, from Union Station, LA, to Union Station, Washington, D.C., and we'll be there on the 15th and be ready for the 16th, which is Operation American Spring, under the leadership of Colonel Wiley and Lieutenant Colonel Alan Coffey. And so we're going to continue to pray for them and continue. In fact, I'm going to D.C. before then. I'm going to D.C. on the 14th. You're talking about the media a while ago. On the 14th through the 18th, I'm going to be doing my show live from 555 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. And anybody can come on the show with me. And we're not going to cut anything out. We're not going to leave anything out. We're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we're going to be broadcasting there live every day at 12 noon. And anybody's
what networks are you on, Wiley?
Well, we're on the WileyDrakeShow.com, which is an internet. The Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C. has the internet network for TV and radio. We're on Crusade Radio, of course. Been on there for 15 years. And then the other way, they just simply go to the WileyDrakeShow.com. I'll be on today at 12 noon, Washington, D.C. time. And people can call in and talk and share. We do not screen the calls. The calls come directly into me. And the number to call in on, if anybody wants to call in on, is a conference call number. And you can be on the conference call 5 minutes or the whole hour. But the conference call number is 712-432-1690. 712-432-1690. And when you call, you'll have to put in your access code. That access code is 399-430#, and that will connect you directly to me. I'm going to be doing, actually, my show today. I'm going to be down in Santa Ana, California, on location, but we'll still be shooting, and people can call in on that conference call line, and they can share anything they'd like to share. They can share their story. We have people call in all the time telling their story about Child Protective Services. We were just over in Arizona recently. We revealed so many cases over there that the governor, Janet Brewer, finally had enough nerve, enough backbone. She abolished CPS. We need to abolish CPS all across the country. Now, they call it different things in different Department of Family Services, et cetera, but it's all a matter of money. They take a child in because the parents have been poor parents. Well, who hasn't been a poor parent? There's not a parent listening right now, not a parent that's ever been alive that didn't make mistakes. But when they make mistakes, they correct them and move on. And the government says, oh, no, you made a mistake. You neglected your child. We're going to take your child away. We know better how to raise that child. And the reason they do is they get $2,000 to $4,000 a month for every child they have in the welfare program and every child that they have in the foster care system. And people like Barney Frank are buying those kids and selling them on Capitol Hill, and all the sex trafficking that's going on has been proven over and over and over again. And when the lady that was running for governor down in Georgia, Nancy Schaefer, when she had a film for that, and we were getting ready to put it on our program, and she and her husband, quote, committed suicide. Nothing could be farther from the truth. They were brutally murdered because she had proof, and they destroyed the film and destroyed her and him. And they were both very godly people fighting this child sex trafficking that's going on through the welfare system and through the child protective system, so to speak. And even the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the most liberal court in the land, they said that there's a financial incentive for child protective services to be in existence and that they should be abandoned and abolished. And yet nobody will listen.
There's more to it than that. This is there was just a judge that was sentencing teenagers to jail, to prison, and being rewarded for it. He just got some time for that. So and certainly these private prisons. My last issue of the Free American, I exposed this whole private prison thing. These are prisons for profit, and judges are being paid a bonus if they find you guilty, and they're putting you into the slave labor camps, which is what these private prisons are.
Well, you're absolutely right. And we're here to stand against those kind of places, obviously. And we're going to continue to fight them. And we had some of our good friends down in over in Ohio. Coach Dobblemeyer, they went over there because the Muslims were putting up the billboards saying Jesus is a Muslim, and Muslims love Christians, and so forth, telling all the lies. And they didn't say you can't put your signs up, it's a free country, but they went in there with a thing called Jesus is Lord, and the police didn't know how to deal with that. But at any rate, we've got to continue to fight. We've got a busy schedule this month and next month, and we would encourage people to be involved in any way, in every way they can. We would encourage folks to go to the websites. There's several of them. The most important one probably is Patriots for America.ning, N-I-N-G.com. So it's patriotsforamerica.ning.com. And there's a chat line on there, and you can chat with people. You can tell them who you are and where you are and what you're going to be doing. The colonel's on there, Lieutenant Colonel Coffee and Colonel Wiley, and they're all on there from time to time. And they've been on my show and on your shows. We're taking this country back, and we're going to do it in a peaceable way. We're not taking guns. We're not taking knives. We're going there, and we're going to take the illegals out. We're not attacking the government. We're just taking the illegal. The first one, of course, is Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Hussein Obama, and Joe Biden, and Eric Cantor, and Nancy Pelosi, and Dirty Harry Reid. Even the Democrats call him Dirty Harry, and that ought to tell you something. And yet people are continuing to reelect these kind of people. And the Republicans are running things, and the Democrats, both those parties. There's not enough difference between them. You can't tell the difference between one and the other. They're all the same.
Two wings of the same bird is what I've been telling people for 20 years.
Right.
And the bird's a global vulture. It ain't no eagle. It's a global vulture They're working for these one world government of the bankers, by the bankers, and for the bankers. And you're the commodity. I mean,
right.
we've just put. I've been covering this for the last couple of weeks, longer than that actually. The last 20 years. Roosevelt sold us, sold the American people out. He pledged you as collateral to the money we're borrowing from the banks. And you know, that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about this whole week. There's some people that just came out with an answer. Part of the problem we got is our food. You know, ninth plank on the Communist Manifesto is corporate farms. Can you say Archer Daniels Midland? Can you say Monsanto? No food that we don't own. And we got these companies that are selling genetically modified foods to you and your children that rats won't eat. I think that's a big problem. And there's one company right now, probably a lot more, called Bright Farms. Bright Farms. And I'll be talking more about them. They, Bright Farms and McCaffrey Market signed the grocery industry's first long-term produce purchase agreement, making a shift in the produce supply chain. They're building greenhouses for the 99 store St. Louis-based supermarket chain of Snuck Markets. They've signed a partnership with J&J Distributing, which to build a 38,000 square foot greenhouse on the property of the supermarket. In other words, they brought the farms to the supermarkets. They brought them downtown. They brought them to Kansas City, Missouri. They brought them to Oklahoma City. They've got them in New York City, and they're setting up these greenhouses next to the markets. So they grow the food, non-GMO foods, and they ship them next door, not from Mexico, not by a truck, not spending a bunch of money on gasoline, shipping vegetables up that they stole from the Mexican farmers. That was our NAFTA agreement that we bitched about. They're growing the food next, right there in the town, in the greenhouses, right next to the supermarkets, and then they're carried across the street to the supermarket. So we don't have any gasoline prices. We don't have truck lines. We're not dependent on nothing. It's a way that American ingenuity, using American labor, American know-how, is solving all the problems that we've got. And I think food is a large part of our problem right now. And
you're absolutely right. The food they're growing it so it looks bigger, looks better, and has no taste. And like you said, even the rats won't eat it. And even when you do eat it, it doesn't do you any good.
That's right. And of course, they made hemp illegal. Hemp goes, the root system goes so deep in the ground that it pulls up the fulvic acid that rebuilds cellular damage. They've only been able to get it from prehistoric plants up until somebody realized that hemp was reaching it and doing that. And of course, they've always known hemp for 200 years in this country was used to renew the soil. But now it looks like marijuana, so we can't have it anymore. Oh my
God. Crazy.
I've got another theory, a little off the wall, Wiley. I think they made hemp illegal because they were afraid we were going to use it to make rope to hang them with.
Yeah, well, that's probably true.
But I'm encouraged. I'm actually encouraged. First of all, we've got our Operation American Spring, and that's happening. And that's if we're getting this kind of information out to everybody in the American Spring thing, they've tried to silence me. They've tried to silence you. They've tried to make it impossible for people to hear us. They tried to kill my magazines, and all this information is in my magazine. Matter of fact, you can get the first 11 issues free at freeamerican.com. And they don't want you to know about it. So it's listen to Rush Limbaugh. He won't talk about this. Listen to Michael Savage. He won't talk about this.
Yeah, they've sold out.
But with what's happened in Colorado, with what's happening in Washington, now in Colorado, you can walk into a store and buy a little bit of pot, go outside and smoke it, and not have to worry about going to prison. Now you can grow hemp in Colorado and possibly Washington and maybe a few more states now and not have to worry about the jackbooted thugs coming in and kicking you open. Now, they're still using the jackbooted thugs to go after anybody that's growing good tomatoes. They did that in Arlington.
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden, there was a group of people that were growing natural foods. And jackbooted thugs went in to stomp on their tomato plants. So this is not, it's not over, but there is light on the horizon. These greenhouses in Indianapolis and Washington, D.C., in Kansas City, in Oklahoma City, in New York City, St. Paul, Minnesota, St. Louis, Missouri, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. They're putting up these greenhouses. And, I wonder about this. Hey, we got shopping malls all over the place. Turn them into greenhouses. Grow the food.
Yeah.
And they're doing it. They're doing it. So.
Yep. Yeah, amen.
We are making headways here.
Well, we are making some headway. And
hang on just a second. Hold on just a second. We got some station break here. Hang on.
At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs. TruthRadio.com. The truth is out there.
All right. My guest is Wiley Drake, Pastor Wiley Drake. You can hear him on Crusade Radio, which we're broadcasting on now. And your call-in number for your show that starts at noon Eastern Time is 712-432-1690. And I believe the PIN number you said was 39943 pound.
430 pound.
43. Okay, well, give me the whole thing.
399-430 pound.
Okay, 399.
Yeah.
Okay, 399-430 pound. All right.
That's correct. And I'll be on it at 12 o'clock, which is an hour from now. And thank you for having me on your program today, and God bless you, and keep up the good work.
All right, sir. I'll let you go right now. I've got some more things to talk about, these farms and all that. Anytime you want me any way I can help. And let the Colonel know that I'd like to have him on as soon as possible. Give him my numbers.
All right.
And
all right. I'll get the word to him, and we'll let him know. And thank you so much.
All right. God bless you. See you later.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
American, and when it needs to be waiting, you know I can. I am a rebel, I am a Minuteman, and I will always fight for God and right. That's where I stand. My evolution is revolution. I was born in what I feel my revolution. I'm a farmer, I am a soldier. I just want to be free. you know I can. There is no enemy that is too strong for me. From towards the third to my way in victory. A son of Washington, daughter of Jefferson. And though I always keep the way, keep me wear my gun. I'm not afraid to fight for all the fear and right. And if you tread on me, then you will be an awesome might. I am a rebel. I am American, and when it means to be awake, you know I can. I fight for liberty against all tyranny. From foreign lands are close at hand, we got my enemy. With stars and skies, with human rights, and God accepted ism, which is right. Don't want a handout, that's not what it's about. Just want a chance to see what liberty can do for me. And now I stand on hallowed land. No going back, we will attack like in the sand. And I'm a rebel, I am American. And when it means to be awake, you know I can. 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 American.
Alright, new song I got up. I like it. I like it. Let's see here if I can find something. Looking for it right now. Okay. Let's see if we can get this to play. I found out that it will record on some of our shows here if we got it. We try to play a video from our regular thing that we use. It doesn't work well. But let's see if we can do this one. Got a couple of things here we need to know about. Let's try it. I've just talked about the Bright Farms. Let's listen to that. Talking about Bright Farms, a produce supply chain revolution. These days we grow produce for travel, not for eating, says Paul Lightfoot, CEO at Bright Farms.
It really does feel like we need a revolution when we think about the challenges we face today. Debt crises, political stalemates, energy, the environment, the food we're feeding our families. But I don't think we should be discouraged. And today I'm going to talk about the story of Bright Farm, but I also want this to be an example for us as leaders, as activists, and as citizens, an example for how we can think about how some of our generation's greatest problems, greatest challenges can be converted into some of our greatest business opportunities. I want to start by looking back a little bit. I want you to raise your hand if you were working in the food industry 5 years ago. Wow, a lot, more than half. We're going to need that experience. 5 years ago, I wasn't. 5 years ago, I was running a business that improved the supply chains of big retailers and their suppliers. I had a singular goal, which was to maximize the efficiencies of systems that brought goods to stores. And let me tell you, I am programmed to live, breathe, and yes, eat efficiency. I have a license plate that reads efficient. It's true, I do. When I followed my passion and came into the food industry and dug into the produce supply chain, I encountered a system that was at odds with itself. Our produce supply chain is incredibly efficient and inefficient all at the same time. First, here's how it's efficient. It produces huge quantities of food at low prices. And here's how it's inefficient. Our fresh produce holds up to travel great, but it can't uphold taste at all. In fact, we grow produce for travel and not for eating. The system breeds foodborne illness, and it's killing our environment. Our fresh produce supply chain is industrialized and centralized to the point that it's an enormous consumer of land, of water, of crude oil, and natural gas. The more I learned, the more I came to realize that for all the good intentions to feed the world, parts of our food supply chain aren't merely inefficient, they're toxic. If TED is about inspiration, well, I was inspired. I was inspired to rethink the produce supply chain. I was more than inspired. I was compelled to develop an alternative supply chain, one that eliminated these inefficiencies and that prioritized farmers, quality food, our health, the environment, and still produced large quantities of food at low prices. I want to make a full stop here for a second. I want to ask each one of you to visualize the best tomato you've had in the last year. You have it? I want you to raise your hand if it came from a supermarket. I can't believe that there's really zero. Although I'm not surprised that it would have at least been close to zero. People typically visualize the tomato from farmers markets, probably a lot of that, gardens, and restaurants. Virtually nobody, or perhaps in this case, literally nobody, says supermarkets. Even when I ask that question of supermarket executives. I'm serious. The tomato I visualized was produced by a 6-year-old, my beautiful daughter Amelia, in our kitchen garden. Amelia and I like to discuss how the most important ingredient in food is love. And how you find love in the food that someone grows or prepares for someone they care about personally. Amelia's tomato that I'm visualizing, and the tomatoes she grows in the garden, look a lot like this tomato. And the tomato I visualized was bursting with flavor. It was bursting with love. And this tomato sucks. I'm serious. That tomato was awful. It was organic. It was expensive. We bought it at a fancy supermarket not far from here. So why does it lack taste? And nutrition too, by the way. They run together. And what does that tell us about the supermarket tomatoes and lettuces that we're buying and feeding to our families? These tomatoes are international travelers. They bounced here to New York from Mexico in a 53-foot truck. No wonder they suck. That's typical, by the way, for U.S. supermarket tomatoes in the winter. Did you know that nearly 100% of supermarket lettuces in the U.S. come from two places? Near Salinas, California in the summer, and Yuma, Arizona in the winter. These lettuces travel 3,000 miles to reach the local grocery store. It's no surprise that lettuce is prone to rotting before it's purchased, or right when people bring it home. This causes huge losses for supermarkets, and it makes my wife who loves fresh baby spinach unhappy, which makes me unhappy. Produce executives, produce buyers, they don't want this. They've actually got families of their own that they're feeding with produce, and they're good people. But they're not just good people, they're business people. They want to bring you quality produce, but they need to buy large quantities of produce at low prices. And right now, there's only one option for that, which is our industrialized and centralized food system. Incrementalism isn't going to do it. Moving food faster or better through this system isn't going to solve these problems. It's time for a revolution in the produce supply chain. Can you imagine a revolutionary new system that had fewer miles, fewer trucks, fewer tasteless tomatoes, that had less foodborne illness, less crude oil, and less rotting lettuce? Can you imagine a revolutionary supply chain where we went back to our roots and grew and sold produce in the same community by a farmer who, like Amelia, grew for taste instead of for travel, and maybe even with a little bit of love? Do you think that would be better? Do you think that would be better? Now, we think so at Bite Farms too. And you know who else does? Produce buyers at supermarkets. They do too. In fact, nearly 20% of the top 50 U.S. supermarkets are already working with Bite Farms to try to make this revolutionary new system a reality. The industry is reacting with huge enthusiasm. Produce buyers sincerely want to bring great food at great prices to their customers. They just need a better option. So how is Bite Farms going to do this? What are we doing? How are we going to bring large quantities of food at low prices that's better quality and better for the environment? It sounds hard, but the answer is surprisingly simple. We're building greenhouse farms, but it's how we're building them and where we're building them at. We're building them at supermarkets, on their roofs, at their distribution centers, and always in their community. Bite Farms provides a turnkey solution. We finance it, we build it, we manage it for our supermarket clients in a way that cuts time, distance, and costs from the produce supply chain. We're building hydroponic recirculating greenhouses and recruiting farmers across the country to bring better produce to everybody. Here's how the deal works. We put up the money, we build the facility, we find, we nurture, we support, we train the local farmer. The supermarket is required to put up zero investment. They merely commit to buying produce that's better. That's not enough, by the way. Zero investment and better produce on their own doesn't satisfy all our wants. There's another factor, which is the price. If we can't meet or beat current market pricing, this is going to remain a fringe initiative. And I'm not interested in the fringe. I'm interested in making a difference. But we can meet or beat existing prices. We do it by having a shorter and simpler supply chain. More than half the cost of this lettuce isn't the lettuce. It's the long and complex supply chain that gets it to your local grocery store. We simply operate without that long and complex supply chain. So we have lower operating costs in the traditional industry. We can sell at low enough prices to meet or beat current market prices. This is a case where less is truly more. So is our business model working? It is. We actually just recently announced the industry's first long-term produce agreement. It's with a great supermarket called Patriots. We're building them a greenhouse at their store in Yardley, Pennsylvania, and I want all of you to go there and check it out. Jim McCaffrey, like many supermarket executives, cares deeply about his customers. He's not just a great businessman. He's a visionary as well. And he had the vision to commit to a revolutionary new system that's bringing better tomatoes and consistent, fantastic lettuces to his store shelves on the day that they're picked. And by the way, it's not just, we care about McCaffrey's customers as much as Jim does. We're not going to be anonymous 3,000 miles away. Our farmer won't be 3,000 miles away. He'll be 3 blocks away from the store. He'll be living, sending his kids to school, creating jobs, and growing produce in the same community as McCaffrey's customers and shopping in the same produce aisles, right there with them. When we started earlier, I said that TED Talks were about inspiration. I've been inspired by many of you here today. I thank you. And I hope I've had the chance to inspire some of you as well. Inspired you to not be discouraged by the problems you're facing or the supply chains in which you feel like you're stuck, but instead to think about these challenges as opportunities to start your own revolutions. And in our case, a revolutionary opportunity to bring our society produce that's safer, healthier, tastier, better for the environment, and bursting with the most important ingredient of all, love.
Well, that is a business model for the Liberty Villages, and one that I highly approve of. I highly approve of this. Now, let's see what else we've got here. Let's see what else we got. I believe yes, Veterans Today. Veterans Today has now followed up what I wrote about, what I revealed over 10 years ago about Larry Silverstein in their latest article by Kevin Barrett, who I've had on my show. New York Times promises all the news that's fit to print. Until now, the Times apparently believed the controlled demolition of 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers on 9/11 was news that was unfit to print. But today, on April 1st, 2014, the Times has finally published an apparent reference to World Trade Center owner Larry Silverstein's mother of all insurance scams. And no, this is not an April Fool's joke. I referred to this and it almost got me killed as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning, and I was absolutely right. Today's Times exposes Silverstein's boundless greed and chutzpah, that is headline, for a ground zero developer seeking subsidies, more is never enough. Journalist Michael Powell seems to have snuck one by Times editors by writing that Silverstein has internalized a developer's rule of thumb in New York City. Only a rube puts much of his own money at risk. Billions of dollars in Liberty bonds, insurance money, developer fees, year after year. Mr. Silverstein has shaken the public tree and benefits have fallen to the ground. This alludes to the fact on 9/11, Silverstein shook the 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers and a multi-billion-dollar windfall fell to the ground at free fall speed. When he bought the largely vacant, money hemorrhaging, condemned for asbestos World Trade Center in July of 2001, just 2 months before 9/11, Silverstein, obviously not a rube, put up less than $15 million of his own money while doubling the World Trade Center's insurance policy to $3.5 billion. $3.5 billion. On 9/11, he skipped his customary breakfast in the windows to the World Restaurant atop the North Tower, allegedly due to a lucky dermatologist appointment. Everybody in the restaurant that day died. Silverstein's family members also canceled World Trade Center appointments that morning. The 9/11 demolitions without a permit allowed Silverstein to collect double indemnity on his terror insurance policy. by claiming that his losses were the result of two completely separate and unrelated terror attacks. You don't have to be Edward G. Robinson of a claims adjuster to know there's something fishy about a guy who buys a white elephant, doubles the insurance, takes a total loss 2 months later, and sues for double indemnity based on a bizarre twist in the policy. The Times article points out that Silverstein's new World Trade Center, like the old asbestos-ridden one, is largely vacant. So Silverstein again wants to shake the tree to the tune of $1.2 billion more in public funds on top of the countless subsidies and insurance fraud payouts he's already extorted. Will Silverstein shake the Unfreedom Tower so billions more will fall to the ground at free fall acceleration? Somebody had better keep an close eye on this guy's insurance policy and make sure he isn't hiring any more Israeli or Bush-owned security firms. Along with referencing World Trade demolitions, Times journalist Michael Powell subtly informs us that he has been reading my Veterans Today column castigating Silverstein. Now Mr. Silverstein wants to shake the tree again in March, as Charles V. Bagley reports in the New York Times. He's asked the Port Authority for New York and New Jersey to guarantee up to $1.2 billion of his construction loans. The board could vote on the proposal this month. As chutzpah, this was impressive, as public policy was less salutary. It was less salutary. Powell's tongue-in-cheek to Silverstein's chutzpah appears to be a sly reference to my many satirical articles on the same subject. If you Google Silverstein chutzpah, the first of 344,000 results is my piece. Chutzpah, the name is Silverstein. Larry wants more billions for blowing up the World Trade Center. And I pointed out in my article 10 years ago that photographer got in with the meeting for the engineering firm that had been there for 10 years. They couldn't build scaffolding that high. The only thing they could do for the buildings, they couldn't repair them. They had to bring them down. Barrett says in the article I created the Larry Silverstein Award for Truth Above and Beyond the Call of Duty, which has then since been awarded to Andrew Adler, the Zionist editor who published an op-ed piece calling on his beloved Mossad to assassinate Obama. Israeli lobbyist Patrick, who publicly called the false flag murder of Americans, called for the false flag murder of Americans to start a war with Iran, and Judge John Walker, who refused to recuse himself from a 9/11 truth lawsuit, even though he's George Bush's cousin. It's great to see the New York Times is reading Veterans Today, and our nation's newspaper of record appreciates Veterans Today untiring efforts to give Larry Silverstein the public flaying he deserved. But it's way past time for the Times to pick up where it left off on November 29, 2001, when it questioned the baffling collapse of World Trade Center 7 and marveled at the members of the debris pile that had been partially evaporated in extraordinarily high temperature, and come right out and tell the truth about 9/11 directly. All right, let's see what else. This okay, this will be interesting. Let me see if I can do that. Let's see if I can get this one up. This is about President Obama. Now, if you think it's a little awkward, a little bit above the whole idea of above the idea of arresting Obama. Let's see if we can look at this. Okay, am I not going to be able to do that? I don't know. Okay, let's see how we can do that. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Okay. We'll put it in between here. Stay with me. Moving as fast as I can. Want to do this expo on Barack Obama, Barry Hussein, Obama, Barry Soetoro. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Right with you. Warm the coffee up. Where did I put it? Well, alright. Let's try getting this up there. Try to get this up here, folks. Bear with me just a second. Alright. Think we got it here. This is a woman that went to school with Obama. Mia Marie Pope is her name. Mia Marie Pope. And after you hear this, you tell me if you think he should be arrested by Colonel Wiley.
We have a special guest now with an exclusive, Mia Maria Pope, who lived in Honolulu, who is a contemporary of the Mac Daddy Obama. She knew him as Barry Soetoro in the early years there when he was a high school student. And Barry always, according to what Mia is going to say to us in a few moments, identified himself as pretty much as a foreigner and also as a cocaine-smoking homosexual on the order of Richard Pryor type. And so she knew him, conversated with him, and is ready now to talk to the Manning Report about her relationship with the Mac Daddy. She calls him Barry Soetoro back in the 70s. Mia, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Well, first of all, we thank you for calling us today and informing us of this information you have as a personal reference of Obama. Could you just kind of run it down and tell us how you knew him? What was some of your participation or actions or interaction with him?
Okay, I'm happy to, and thank you for having me on, Dr. Manning. I really admire your good work you're doing. I was born in '63. My family, I was born in California. My family moved to Waimanalo, Hawaii when I was a young infant. So all of my formative years were spent in Waimanalo, Hawaii, which is on the island of Oahu. And then my father's work, he was a musician, and then we would fly back and forth from California to Hawaii. So invariably, I spent my summers, we would have like a hotel or we'd get an apartment in Waikiki. Now, I did not meet or see Barry Soetoro till about 1977. I was about late 13, 14 years old. And during those years, during the summertime, we as neighborhood kids, we would sort of hang out, and we all sort of, knew each other's business and didn't really have anything to plug into. We pretty much hung out in Waikiki and at the beach and so forth. And I knew of this individual. His name was Barry Soetoro. And he always portrayed himself as a foreign student. And that didn't mean much to me then, but, that's just what we knew about him. And he wasn't really close within my particular circle of friends. He was a little bit older than me. And he very much was within sort of the gay community, which there is a thriving, even back then, gay community in that area, particularly the Diamond Head area. And we knew Barry as just common knowledge that, girls were never anything that he was ever interested in. And, as a young teenager, as a young girl, I mean, it was clear to me that Barry was strictly into men. And, not that I had any designs on him or anything. I mean, he and I really didn't even get along because one of his attributes that's still evident today is that he was even a pathological liar back then. And I'm not kidding. I mean, every time this guy would open his mouth, the most outlandish stories would come out of his mouth. And so pretty soon we would I actually, I'm going back over 30 years here, but I remember us saying, like, Barry, don't you get tired of lying? He was a pathological liar even then. He'd make
what were some of the kinds of lies he would tell? Mia, what were some of the lies? Just for an example of what he was he just egotistical? Was he lying about?
Yeah, it was always, exactly, Dr. Manning. It was always some self-aggrandizing thing. And I'm doing my best, because I'm going back so far, it's hard for me to remember a verbatim conversation. I have very clear image memories, but it was always something to egotistically boost himself, that it was always something how he was, he had this weird air where like he used to go around bumming cigarettes from people, which, I think we all did. But the thing was with him is he would turn it on, try to see if he could get something off of you type thing, and then as soon as you'd be stupid enough to go to hand him a cigarette, he'd snap in an instant and walk away. I just, it's such an injury, you know what I mean? So he didn't actually have a lot of friends or anything really. He was just in the periphery. And I had some gay acquaintances. I remember, this is the late 70s. I mean, drugs were around, and, that lifestyle was just starting to really come to the forefront, and as far as people were very out front with their personal behavior. And so, it was just always one thing or another with Barry. He just seemed to be incapable of being genuine or telling the truth about anything. So that kind of turned us off. But, we were young teenagers, we're naive. It's kind of like, all right, yeah, Barry the liar, whatever. And then, but one thing that he did brag about, now remember, this is the late 70s, this is before crack was invented, or if it was invented, we never saw it around. I never heard of it until the 80s. So this was, if you were going to do cocaine, it was like in the powder form, and it was very expensive. Well, here we are, a bunch of broke teenagers, and, in other words, for somebody to brag that they have this cocaine was, somewhat newsworthy within our little clique. And he probably was telling the truth, he would get with these older white gay men, and this is how we just pretty much had the impression that that's how he was procuring his cocaine. In other words, he was having sex with these older white guys, and that's how he was getting his cocaine to be able to freebase. But that wasn't the nature only. I mean, his lives would be just mundane thing. I mean, in other words, if he told you the sun was shining, you better go out and check. It just, it was anything that he would lie about. It seemed like he just couldn't tell the truth about anything.
How do you, I'm sure you're not the only one from Obama's childhood, but also you are aware that very few, your statements now are extremely rare. Very few people have come from Honolulu, from Waikiki, or from those haunts of Obama to actually make mention of the fact that they knew him during these years of his life. What do you attribute that to? That no one is able to identify it?
Yeah, I'd like to share that with your listening audience. Okay, well, one, I'm a Christian, and I care deeply about my country. So there's a certain anger that is within me about this individual destroying my country. So he's not on my Christmas list. And so I don't like the guy. And I mean, if he was doing a good job, regardless of what his past was, I wouldn't be on the phone with you today. But why me as opposed to someone else? I would just simply say maybe courage. I've gotten to a point in my life where it turns my stomach when people take the low road and don't stand up and tell the truth and maybe, just be out front, like what you do, Dr. Manning. I mean, what you do is courage, and you stand up and you tell it, and it's righteous. So I guess I'd like to follow within that line. So I refuse to be a coward.
Am I hearing you say that, well, when you first came on the scene, running when the primary to be the nominee, having all that happen and then capturing illegally the election, at first you did not have any calls to come forward, in as much as that he might have done something.
Precisely. Like, had I had a photograph or a video, I would have immediately coveted that and then waited to see, and I would have leaked that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I don't have a video or a picture. So that's part of, as I started to wake up about Barry Soetoro, and it kind of kept me behind because I actually called the FBI several times exposing his using fake Social Security numbers, and they did nothing. And I told them about my past. Nobody ever called me back. Nobody ever wanted to give me further information. So I felt that I was being stonewalled. And this is several years ago I'm talking about that I contacted the FBI. So nobody was interested in my story. So that's part of it. And then when he very first came on the scene, I scratched my head thinking, has he really changed his ways? You know, in my head thinking, you know, could this be the same guy that I remember? Because I remember this guy as low road, you know, guy. In other words, you wouldn't trust this guy to walk your dog. And I thought, really? You know, this guy, and so I'm kind of waiting to see what he's doing. And
let
so,
me ask you this
you know,
question.
because it's not, in other words, I'm a gay friend. I don't care that he's gay. I don't care even that he smoked prolifically free-based cocaine in the 70s. I was sort of waiting to see what sort of adult he was.
When Larry Sinclair publicized and had the press conference indicating he had a homosexual relationship with Obama, and that they both smoked crack cocaine. This was before the election. No one really paid Larry any attention. I want to come back to that. Let me just ask another question. I think it's probably more important. I noticed you say with emphasis Barry Soetoro, and that would be the way you remember him, because that's who he was, and we all know that's who he was when he was in Hawaii. He goes to Occidental, and at some point between Occidental and the next time we see him, his name is Barack Obama.
Right.
Which
cracked me up. I thought it was hilarious. So, and that was also another indicator to me, like something shady here. Like, what's really going on with this guy? And so, yeah, so it's etched in my memory. He'll always be Barry Soetoro to me.
I hear that.
And, yeah, and as far as, you know, I understand, I am familiar with the Larry Sinclair story, and I am here to tell the listening audience that Barry Soetoro was smoking a cocaine pipe long before Larry Sinclair.
Do you know, did you meet his mother, Stanley Ann, or did you meet Frank Marshall Davis?
I saw his mother around. She was never involved. I thought I saw the long brunette hair, and this is a sketchy memory, but no, I did not have any interaction.
Why do you think his grandmother never publicly endorsed him, said anything at all about him? Why do you think that's so? I mean, you may not know the family. You probably didn't get a chance to know.
She's an individual. I mean, she must have known what you and I know, and now your listening audience knows. This guy is not, I don't want to say foul words, you know, but this guy is like that kind of, you know, this scumbag kind of guy, you know what I mean?
Well, he is.
He's proud of.
There's no doubt about that.
Right. Yeah. So I was familiar with the apartment building that his grandparents lived in, and that was off of Barricania. This is in Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, you know, Waikiki is just an area where us kids used to hang out, but I have had ties to Punahou through friends and things like that, and I'm familiar with the apartment building that his grandparents lived in. And it's just a simple walk up. It didn't look like these people had any kind of money whatsoever. And that was another thing that struck us, like, how do you live there and go to Punahou, which is a really expensive school? And I mean, like, even back in the day, it was something in the order of $600 or $700 a month in $70s. It was a big, you know, big tuition to go to that school.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and also it's very difficult to get in at mid-level, meaning that school, unless you have something stellar going on with you, they'll only accept you if you start out in kindergarten. So for him to have, you know, come from Indonesia at whatever age, and I didn't know him then, when he was fresh from Indonesia, but to have come over at that age and then just get inserted into Punahou, let me tell you, and I'm no stranger to Punahou, that is very unusual. And then we all just kind of thought, oh, he's a foreign, okay, they got some special waiver for foreign students, which tied into what he told everybody.
Why do you think that Obama's cocaine use, his drug use, and that he was having experiences with the white men, businessmen in the Honolulu area. Well, I should say, what do you think? Do you think that his interest into Punahou could have been the influence of white businessmen or homosexual or gay group inside that school? Because I was concerned about how he could come from Jakarta and Islamic culture at the age of 10 years old and immediately transition into one of the more exclusive schools in America at the time.
Exactly. Now as a grown adult, I can look back and I would have to say that there had to have been some type of, I'm going to say CIA because I don't know any other agency that would, get involved in these sorts of things, but I don't know anything like that as a fact, but something or some force got this guy set up. I mean, it was certainly not a natural thing. So I don't know which column or shadow government or whatever was responsible for his entree onto that scene, but something unusual had to have happened. In other words, he wasn't just some guy out of nowhere filling out an application from Indonesia and then Punahou said, welcome. That wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, we can be clear about that. So that that has been the trend, Mia, from Punahou to Occidental, allegedly to Columbia, and also to Harvard.
And no one ever saw him at Columbia. Remember, we have people who were in the same class, supposedly, majored in political science, which was supposedly Barry's exact major, and they went around and interviewed every single member of that student body, and not one person ever saw him at that school.
Have you had any contact with any of the other people that used to hang out with you down at Waikiki that also are observing Obama and are amazed at what he has done, the lies that he has told, and he is a liar. No doubt about that. He's a drug use, he's a sexual pervert as well. He is a pervert. Because we only have a few moments left, I want to ask you about his movement to Chicago. There were two deaths in Chicago that the world has let go by. One was Donald Young. The other was Nate Spencer, and there was three deaths, and the third person's name escapes me right now.
Larry Bland.
Larry Bland, that's right.
Larry Bland. And all three of those individuals were murdered within days of each other.
This same Obama that used to hang out, smoke dope, freeload cigarettes, try to put a thrill on you, try to put a Mac on you if he wanted something from
exactly.
You. And the moment he got what he wanted, he dropped the Mac game and
he dropped the Mac immediately. And that was the thing that
he was a good Mac daddy. He knew how to Mac back in the 1970s. He knew how to Mac.
Correct.
He knew that game perfectly.
Correct. Have you had an opportunity to see the picture of him in drag on YouTube?
Yeah, there's a picture of him in drag in a leather outfit that's really revealing more flesh, and the only place it covers up is his genitals, but everything else is fully exposed. It looked like some sort of a sadistic outfit. I've seen it, yes.
Yeah. I mean, those boots he's wearing are in a man's size, so for anybody out there that thinks that maybe he drugged this out of his mother's closet on a dare or something, remember, he had to have those boots specially made because they're in a man's size. But I actually saw Barry, not in that outfit, and I wasn't present while that picture was taken, but on a couple of occasions, there was a movie called Rocky Horror Picture Show that was really popular back then.
Yeah.
And so one of the lead characters in that, it was played by, I think, Tim Curry, and the teenagers would go week after week after week and go see this. Well, anyway, he would dress up as a transvestite sometimes for that. So I actually saw him in other attire similar to that picture that you've just described. But I wasn't present for that picture.
Why do you think that Larry Bland, Nate Spencer, Donald Young were all killed within a heartbeat of each other? They were all members of the Trinity United Church of Christ, Trinity United Church of Hell, there in Chicago, Illinois, where Obama was a member, and yet the investigations into their deaths have gone absolutely nowhere.
I can say that there are forces in this country that like very slimy qualities in what he's doing to our country, and that must be these globalists or the gangsters, you know, you name it, this secret shadow elements of the government that simply want to destroy our Constitution and roll us into Marxism. And you'd have to ask yourself, why on earth would anybody want that? And I can only say they're psychopaths. I don't know why they'd want that, but there's obviously elements within the government that are protecting him.
You are revealing this information to me today, and we're ever so grateful and completely indebted to you for talking to us as one who had youth experience with Obama. What are your plans beyond now? Are you going to step up your privilege, if you will, that you did know him, you know who he is, and then my other question, do you now fear for your life? Because Obama has been known to kill people, and he will kill. He's a killer. He's not only a liar.
Absolutely.
He's not only a liar.
Inconvenient even. Forget about getting in his way. You know, I'm at a point, Dr. Manning, I mean, I told you I'm a Christian, and I kind of live by the philosophy you're going to win or lose with both feet, and I refuse to live the rest of my life as a coward. So come what may, I'm already made my peace with Jesus, and, you know, if the world ends tomorrow for me, I'm clear about what I have in store for me. I'm not trying to be a martyr, and I'm not saying things like I'm going to tempt things, but I absolutely will not be a coward and do like a lot of these people do. And in other words, I believe if you submit to evil, you're serving it. So then I have to fight evil. If you know what I mean?
No, I understand.
I'm just not going to be passive with it.
No, I understand you clearly 100%. And that is the only way to go. Unfortunately, people don't choose that. It takes a certain amount of commitment and understanding to say what you just said. It takes a certain amount of wisdom. You don't get that overnight. You don't get there in just a heartbeat. You don't get there fictitiously. What you have just said to me does not come from the mouth of very many people. And I think most people know that. So that within itself is sustaining power, and I think you know that. If that will sustain you.
Maybe one last thing, I know you're pressed for time, is that if another person can see someone have some courage, then maybe it could be either inspiring or as an example. Stand up. You know, don't bury your head in the sand, and don't be a coward. That's really kind of what I want to do. And I will speak up again to whomever's willing to listen.
Well, I'm afraid your story is going to get told more often now, and you're probably going to be sought after, I perceive, in the days to come. And I'm not sure how soon, but I'm sure in the days to come, when America wakes up and the world wakes up and they recognize that they need to correct this wrong, they're going to need to put the pieces together, and they're going to need you, Mia. So we're going to pray for you. We thank God for where you are at present. And quite frankly, I would pray to God that a lot of other people could have the wisdom that you are expressing. But the world's going to need you to put all the puzzles together. So stay strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. And you're going to be fine.
I will.
Is there anything you'd like to say? Is there anything you'd like to say should someone want to contact you? Any further information you'd like to give before?
If you know, I'm happy to you may share my phone number. I don't have a website or anything. I'm a private citizen, so I'm not, you know, in the business. I don't have any plans to write a book or anything, because I don't think I could fill up a book. But if someone's interested for legitimate reasons to hear my story, I'm happy to give it. You're welcome to share my phone number anytime you like.
All right. Okay, Mia, we are really greatly indebted to you for what you have done. Not only the information that you have given and given us a personal view of Barry Soetoro, that has become Barack Obama, but also I think you're inspiring just by the way you have demonstrated your commitment to come forward. Beyond the information, though, you did get some revelations, and that's a good thing, and we're all excited about the new information we know about this creep, but your inspiration is probably...
that's really the thing. You know, if we can, you know, let's, us Americans, let's just, because we're all going to lose unless we get together. So, if that goes to the good of someone's heart, I'm thrilled.
Thank you, Mia. And God bless you. Stay strong in the Lord and the power of his might.
All right. That was a classmate of Barry Sotero, and I wanted you to hear it. I will go to Washington. I will do whatever it takes to get this message out, to make Operation American Spring a success. I do need your donations. I do need your help. I've got to get pay tickets. I got to do this. I got to do that in order just to get to the store. So I need your help. And you can go to freeamerican.com and make a donation. I appreciate that. I appreciate you listening. God bless America.